Hi, my name's Joshua Weiss, and I've been working on an audio series here at AudioGo called The Negotiator and You, which is broken into three parts of negotiating at work, at home, and in life. A lot of us in the negotiation world get started actually when we're kids and noticing how people around us negotiate. And then really actually my introduction to the field was when I spent some time overseas, noticing conflicts that were happening a lot and seeing people's efforts to try to handle those conflicts through negotiation and not violent means. And then I went to graduate school, and that's when I really understood and became to learn that negotiation was actually a field that you could study and come to understand and to work in. And it's not exactly the easiest field to get work in, but once you do, it's very rewarding in a lot of ways. And so went to graduate school and then was fortunate to get a job at a place called the Program on Negotiation, which is based at Harvard Law School. And spent quite a while there, and then went and did my Ph.D. in international conflict analysis and resolution so that I could focus more on how to negotiate in very difficult, intractable kinds of conflicts. And when I finished, I started working at a place called the Global Negotiation Initiative at Harvard University, and have been working there since. The Negotiator and You is a series that I've sort of always had in the back of my head, and I had done a podcast for a number of years called The Negotiating Tip of the Week. And it, to my surprise, became quite popular with average people from around the world who were interested in negotiation. And so I became really quite interested in trying to take the skills and the ideas that are associated with negotiation to a much broader audience, because a lot of people think that negotiation is something that people do just in a boardroom or people do it at a peace table. But the reality is that we negotiate every day all the time. And I really want people to understand that, because the skills that are associated with negotiation not only help you in those situations, but they also help you in life writ large. And was really interested in, I have been sort of as part of my career, interested in translating the ideas that are generated by really bright people in my field to a larger audience so that people can utilize this in their lives. There have been a lot of strange situations or unpredictable situations, and I think one thing that you come to know about negotiation is that when you think you really understand it is when you get thrown a curveball or it becomes quite unpredictable. I think probably some of the most strange situations have been while I've been working in the Middle East on a project for the last 7 years where we've been negotiating with folks at the governmental level and some of the formalities and customs that go along with that, all the way down to the village level. And I can recall one negotiation in one of my first negotiations in one of the villages that we were working in Jordan, where we had to sit out behind a small little hut with goats running around and drinking goat's yogurt, fresh goat's yogurt, which was quite pungent, and trying to persuade the villagers as to what we were doing and why we were doing it, and try to think about what their world was, because in any negotiation, you're always having to try to speak people's language and be persuasive to them where they are. And so for me, who's somebody who was raised here in the United States and worked at Harvard, it was a very surreal experience to try to make the case, and we did. But I also got quite sick from that goat's yogurt. I think some of the most common negotiation mistakes that people make are, first of all, is their mindset. When they go into a negotiation, they often think that it's a win-lose kind of scenario. More for me is less for them. And the reality is that many negotiations are not like that. And so I think people go into a situation, and that's one of the big challenges, is how they're starting to look at it. Because if you see a problem as if it's a nail, then you're going to use a hammer. And if you see it as a challenge to be overcome, then that changes things. I also think that one challenge that comes along with negotiation is that people compromise too early. They don't take time to become creative and to really try to find value, because value exists for people in negotiation in a lot of different ways. It's not just money. If you even just think about what you value in life, money is part of the puzzle, but there are other things that come along with it. And so I think people are quick to compromise. And I also think that another challenge for people is that they don't focus on the intangible or psychological aspects of negotiation enough. So we tend to want to focus on the tangible, the budget or whatever it might be, when a lot of times disrespect or frustration or anger, other things that matter to people are the real block to a negotiation, and people don't spend enough time thinking, is that part of the problem here? And I would say the final challenge that I see people struggle with a lot is the emotional side of a negotiation. And, human beings are logical and emotional creatures. And so we can't eliminate one or the other from the negotiation process. So it's not a question of whether you could keep negotiations out, which is what a lot of people try to do, or keep emotions out of negotiation. It's a question of how you manage them. And a lot of people don't know how to manage them very well. And so I think that's a place where most of the mistakes are made in negotiations, when people are emotional and they're not thinking clearly. And so I think there's a way of managing the emotional piece of this that is really important, and a common mistake that people make. I think audio is a good format for this project because of the world we live in today, because I think people tend to be, whether they like to think of it or not, multitaskers, and they like to do a lot at a given moment and try to use as much time management as they can. And I find that people who had commented to me about the podcast that I had done, so that they would listen to it in the car or on the subway or when they're working out. And I think audio lends itself to that kind of way of living, where we can listen to something while we're doing other things. And I also think that today's world is a world where people want important information, and sometimes they want it quickly. And so I think audio is a really good medium for that, to kind of convey some concise points to people and get them thinking, because this series, The Negotiator and You, is something that is not the end of the story for people. It should be the beginning of thinking differently about negotiation, and I really believe that audio is a great way to get people thinking about wanting more. The workbooks offer what I would consider to be some vital information that accompanies the audio portion of the program. And generally speaking, the workbooks are really designed to help you in your preparation. So when you listen to the series, you then want to take action, and you want to utilize what's being provided to you. And so the workbook is designed to help you to prepare for that. And there's a number of key points to keep in mind as you focus on any one of the subjects that we talk about, as well as some key questions, so that when you're sitting down to think about, how do I approach a negotiation with my boss, for example, I know what the key questions are, and I can ask them to myself and use the workbook to really help me prepare. So that was the primary reason to have it, is to give people some confidence that they can listen to this and really actually take it and utilize it. What was really great about the project, and something that I've always wanted to do, is to take negotiation out of the work context solely. Negotiation happens at work a lot, and it's important there. And yet, it also happens at home and in life for us, and in a lot of different contexts. And so I think the opportunity to talk about that and to put it in that context for people and have them really think about it is something that I'm very excited about. And so I hope that this will reach a lot of people, and that it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I enjoyed it, and the people here have been great.